You make more money than your parents did at your age. Your salary looks decent on paper. You're not stupid with money. So why does it feel like you're broke all the time? Why does a trip to the grocery store feel like a mortgage payment? Why are you one car repair away from financial disaster even though you have a good job? Here's what they'll tell you. They'll say you're bad at budgeting. They'll say you waste money on coffee and streaming services. They'll blame inflation and say it's temporary. They'll tell you to work harder, save more, and cut back on luxuries. And all of that's garbage. The real reason you can't afford anything has nothing to do with your spending habits. It's got everything to do with a system that's designed to extract every dollar from your pocket while convincing you that it's your fault. Let me show you what's actually happening. In the last 3 years, corporate profit margins hit their highest levels in 70 years. Companies aren't just passing costs along to you. They're actively gouging you and calling it inflation. When gas prices went up, companies like ExxonMobil posted record profits. Not record revenue, record profits. That means after all their costs, they made more money than ever before. Where did that money come from? Your wallet. Look at grocery stores. In 2022 and 2023, the biggest grocery chains saw profit margins increase by over 30%. But they told you it was supply chain issues. They told you it was inflation. Meanwhile, their CEOs were on earnings calls bragging to investors about how much they could raise prices without losing customers. This isn't a theory. This is documented. Kroger executives admitted under oath in a California antitrust case that they raised prices on milk and eggs far more than their costs went up. And internal documents showed they were deliberately using the inflation narrative to justify bigger than necessary price hikes. Here's the thing about inflation that nobody talks about. Real inflation is when costs go up and companies pass those costs to consumers to maintain the same profit margin. What we've got now is greedflation. Costs go up a little and companies raise prices a lot. They pocket the difference and blame the economy. And you're the one who suffers because your wages didn't go up 30%. They went up maybe 3% if you're lucky. Let me give you the numbers. From 1979 to 2020, productivity in America went up 62%. That means workers are producing way more value per hour than they used to. You'd think that means wages went up 62% too, right? Wrong. Wages went up 17%. Where'd the other 45% go? Straight to the top. CEO pay went up 1,300% in that same time period. 1,300%. That's not a typo. So when people say the economy's doing great, they mean the stock market's doing great. They mean corporations are doing great. They don't mean you're doing great, because the system's rigged to funnel money upward and keep you barely scraping by. You work harder than your grandparents did. You're more educated than they were, but they could buy a house on a single income, and you aren't able to afford rent with 2 incomes. That's not because you're lazy. That's by design. Here's how they keep you down. First, they suppress your wages. Study after study shows that when workers try to organize for better pay, companies spend millions on union busting. Amazon spent $14.2 million in 2022 on anti-union consultants. Why? Because paying workers fairly would cut into their profits. It's cheaper to spend millions keeping you powerless than to give you a raise. And when they do give raises, they make sure it's never enough to actually get ahead. They'll give you 3% when inflation's at 8% and act like they're doing you a favor. They'll call it a cost of living adjustment, while your cost of living is going up 3 times faster than your paycheck. It's calculated. They know precisely what they're doing. Keep you just comfortable enough that you won't quit, but desperate enough that you won't push back. That's the sweet spot for maximum profit extraction. Then there's shrinkflation. You've seen this. The box is the same size, but there's less product inside. The bag of chips is mostly air. The candy bar is smaller. Companies do this because they know you won't notice as easily as you'd notice a price increase. They're literally giving you less and charging you the same or more. That's theft with extra steps. And let me talk about rent for a second, because this is where it gets really dark. There are companies right now using algorithms to fix rent prices. Landlords all plug their data into the same software. The software tells them all to raise rent at the same time. That's algorithmic price fixing in all but name. Multiple class action lawsuits and a full Department of Justice antitrust investigation say it's effectively collusion. RealPage and the big landlords insist it's legal, but the lawsuits claim it's driving rents up 10 to 20% higher than a competitive market would allow. And so far, the courts haven't stopped it. But they do it anyway because the fine if they get caught is way smaller than the profit they make. RealPage is one of these companies, and they control rent for millions of units across America. You can't negotiate with an algorithm. You just pay whatever it tells your landlord to charge. But here's the part that'll really make you mad. While all this is happening, corporations are sitting on record amounts of cash. They're doing stock buybacks to boost share prices instead of raising wages. They're paying dividends to shareholders instead of investing in their workers. Apple's got over $60 billion in cash. Amazon's got over $80 billion. They could give every employee a massive raise and still be obscenely profitable. But they don't, because keeping you desperate keeps you compliant. The math's simple. If they paid you what you're actually worth, they'd still be profitable. They'd still be successful, but their profit margins would go from obscene to just really good, and that's not acceptable to them. They'd rather you struggle to pay rent than see their quarterly earnings dip by 2%. They'd rather you skip doctor visits because you can't afford the copay than take a smaller bonus. Your suffering is built into their business model. It's not a bug, it's a feature. They profit specifically because you can't afford to live comfortably. Think about it. If you've got no savings and you live paycheck to paycheck, you can't quit a job you hate. You can't negotiate for better pay. You can't take risks. You're trapped. And that's exactly how they want you. A desperate worker is an obedient worker. They've spent decades dismantling the social safety net and gutting worker protections because when you've got no other options, you'll take whatever scraps they offer. And the media plays along. Every time workers ask for a living wage, the news talks about how it'll raise prices or kill jobs. But when a CEO gets a $50 million bonus, nobody bats an eye. When a company lays off workers to boost its stock price, it's just smart business. The narrative's always the same. Workers asking for more is greedy. Corporations taking more is just capitalism. So what do you do about this? First, you stop blaming yourself. You're not broke because you're bad with money. You're broke because wages haven't kept up with the cost of living for 50 years. You're broke because housing costs have gone up faster than inflation. You're broke because healthcare in America is a scam. You're broke because the system's working exactly as intended. It's designed to make you feel like you're failing when really the system's failing you. Second, you start paying attention to where your money goes. Who owns the company you're buying from? Are they posting record profits while their workers are on food stamps? Are they funding politicians who vote against raising the minimum wage? Your money's power. Use it wisely. And third, you talk about this stuff. The reason this system works is because everyone thinks they're the only one struggling. Everyone thinks it's their fault, but when you realize that everyone around you is one emergency away from bankruptcy, you start to see the pattern. This isn't individual failure, this is systemic theft. Here's the bottom line. You work hard, you play by the rules, and you still can't get ahead. That's not because you're doing something wrong, it's because the game's rigged. Corporate profits are at record highs while you're deciding between groceries and gas. Executive pay has exploded while your wages have stagnated. The wealth gap's bigger now than it was during the Gilded Age. And they want you to believe it's your fault for not budgeting better. Don't fall for it. The real reason you can't afford anything anymore is because the people at the top decided your financial security is worth less than their third yacht. They built a system that extracts wealth from workers and funnels it upward. And they convinced you to blame yourself instead of them. So next time someone tells you to skip the coffee to save money, ask them why a CEO needs a $100 million bonus while their workers need government assistance to eat. Next time someone says inflation's temporary, ask them why corporate profits keep going up while your paycheck doesn't. Next time someone blames you for being broke, remind them that the system's designed to keep you that way. You deserve better than this. We all do. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Drop a comment and tell me what's the one thing you've had to cut from your budget that you could easily afford 5 years ago. I want to hear your stories because I guarantee you're not alone.